generation is just running wild at the moment. They need a little bit of guidance.
John Ibrahim is perhaps the most infamous figure to come out of Sydney's murderous underbelly. Nightclub kingpin, gangland enforcer, street fighting machine, Ibrahim deserves the moniker of King of the Cross, a bustling area in Sydney that draws party animals from all over the world. From the 1960s onwards, King's Cross came to serve as both the city's main tourist accommodation and entertainment mecca, as well as its red light district. Organised crime and police corruption were well entrenched in the area. One of the Sydney's most notorious illegal casinos operated with impunity for many years, although it was located only yards from Darlinghurst police station. Much of this activity started with Abe Saffron, commonly known as Mr. Sin, or the Boss of the Cross, and heavy gangland figures such as Len McPherson and George Freeman before John Ibrahim came to prominence. The Ibrahims came over to Australia from a brutal civil war in Lebanon, which took place from 1975 to 1990. It resulted in an estimated 150,000 fatalities and also led to the exodus of almost 1 million people from Lebanon. On landing in Sydney, the Ibrahims grew up to be one of the most infamous and respected Lebanese families in Sydney West. John's older brother Sam is an upload all on his own, a top martial artist and street fighter, feared across Sydney's underworld, who led bikie gangs and spent many years in jail before being deported back to Lebanon. Sam Ibrahim was a guiding light for John, training him to be an accomplished martial artist and street fighter, and was ferociously protective of his little brother. The extraordinary story of John Ibrahim has been laid to bear in a best-selling, explosive book, The Last King of the Cross, and chronicled in several popular drama series, and John has given me permission to read an extract from his book, link in the description, about an infamous battle on the cross between a violent bikie gang and John Ibrahim and his bouncers that was key in establishing respect and control of the often violent cross. In the early 1990s, there are gangs terrorising the street and intimidating venues with a full sense of entitlement. Bikies, thugs, football teams, Westies, etc. Remember, the cross is all there is back then if you want to go out late, so everyone comes to us sooner or later. Occasionally, the wrong kind of person gets into a club, and if they get lucky and have the numbers before we get to them, they even win a few fights. But you have to understand that in this world, even if you win, you lose. I'll leave it at that. However, the cross policy with any kind of gang is we never let them gain entry in any venue or get a foothold in the area. Basically, zero tolerance. The bikies in particular don't like being barred. That said, back then the biggest bikie club is only 30 strong, and they're all fat Anglos. By this time, the cross tensions are building with the bikies. Only 2 weeks earlier, Sam is on the street outside the Pink Pussycat, where all the bikies park in a row and lounge around on the bikes. He's not a bikie himself yet, but he's hanging around them because that is where Sleeve Master's tattoo studio is. Scott, who was already part of the Nomads at the time, was running the tattoo parlour, and he'd become friends with Sam. Illusions was also across the road, another one of Sam's hangouts. A guy rocks up, trying to rally some backup from fellow bikies. He has 2 teeth missing and tells them how some little prick has just headbutted him. Whilst the guy's still talking, Sam is getting up, but then he sits back down and says, "Let me guess, is the place called the Tunnel?" "Yes," says the bikie, "in the back lane." Now the rest of Sam's crew, along with Sam, sit back down, and Sam says to the guy, "I know the exact little prick you're talking about. He's my little prick brother. Now we can go across the road to Illusions, and it's my shout, or I can knock out the rest of your teeth. It's up to you." So trouble was brewing with the bikies, and the next time it comes, it breaks all records. Little do I know, I'm about to have my own little war in the back lane of King's Cross. Tonight, I'm hoping to close early, so I can go next door to Porky's and celebrate Big Stan's Bucks night. Inside with me at the tunnel are all the security from Bobby McGee's nightclub, led by Commando Nick and Roy, waiting for me to cash up so we can join the party next door. Suddenly, I'm called urgently to the front door, and before I reach it, to the roar of Harley Davidsons is unmistakable. The door girl who called me is ashen-faced, and I see she's scared. I step onto the street with one of my doormen. Jammed along this small lane is 30 or more motorbikes, with a variety of bikies, most of them patched. They kick out their stands almost in unison, which was cute, I thought, and I see the weapons come out, baseball bats and tire irons. I step back inside the door and give the door girl, Sonia, who ended up marrying Commando Nick, a nod. She flicks on the flashing red light, a group security system that links all the clubs together, and I tell her to close the door behind us because it's bulletproof, so at least she'll be safe. As the door closes, I try to break the mood and ask her, "Be honest, how does my hair look?" She smiles, but her heart just isn't in it. So much for a quiet night and an early closing. This episode started a few hours earlier with Mark, my doorman, knocking back 2 F-wits from a motorcycle club. Now they're back in numbers, and as they dismount and walk towards the tunnel, I see they're not taking off their helmets, which is supposed to be intimidating. What they don't know is that there's something like a doorman's convention happening just a few meters away from them. If life is about timing, these idiots are shit out of luck. Now I'm seeing more axe handles, baseball bats and iron bars. I can see some of these idiots even putting in mouth guards. For real, mouth guards. They're cocky. Not the confidence of the warrior, but of the bully. But to be real with you, just standing there with 2 other guys in suits, I'm secretly thinking we're effed. As I lock eyes with the main guy approaching, I realise it's not going to be pretty, but then I see the cocky smirks on their faces turn to fear as the side doors of neighbouring clubs open and out pour all the bouncers from Big Stan's party, drunk and more than up for it. And then my kitchen door opens and the rest of Bobby McGee's crew and my friends at the tunnel come jogging into Earl Place to confront the threat. Even Paulie, our Chinese chef, who doesn't speak a word of English, is on hand with a big medical case. I gave him his first job in Australia. Turns out he was a doctor in China. Over the years, he's become our unofficial medic. Now there's about 20 of our guys, more spruikers, other club owners, and even a few hardened stiletto-wielding hookers jogging down the lane towards the bikies. I'll take those odds. That night ranks as one of the ugliest things I've ever witnessed. Well, at least up to that point. There's so much damage on both sides. The police arrive mid-fight, block both ends of the street and just watch. Because realistically, they can't do a lot more. Leaving their helmets on doesn't help the bikies much. Half of them have their helmets cracked off their heads. And the ones who can manage to F off do so in such a hurry that they leave their bikes behind, which is a mistake. A couple of the coconut boys from Porky's pick up the bikies, abandoned weapons lying on the ground, and start going to work on the remaining bikes, just smashing them to pieces. To anyone who might be offended at the use of the word coconut, don't be. Islander boys, or coconuts, is just the way we talk to each other on the street. All of us are like brothers. They call us Lebos, we call them coconuts. Tongan Sam, head coconut, is my closest friend and a brother to all Ibrahims. I hear later that the cops were even laying bets on who would win, the bouncers or the bikies. The cops who bet on us made a lot of money that night, but on such a brutal fight. The message is clear. You want to move on the cross, then you need to bring more than a few baseball bats, and you come with more than 30 guys. But more realistically, that night happened to be bad timing for them and good timing for us. I ended up with 2 cracked ribs and a ringing in my head that no one could answer. I guarantee you, no one who was there that night has ever forgotten it. So that was the upload on John Ibrahim, and I've given some background as well to Sam, not so much on his other brothers, but that was about the fight they had, infamous fight on outside the tunnel against the bikers back in the 80s, I believe that was. I can bring more on John Ibrahim. I'd just like to thank him for allowing me to use some of the extracts from his book, Absolute Gentleman. Highly recommend you go and purchase his book. There's a link in the description. There's also drama series you can watch. I'm not sure if it's on Amazon Prime or it may be on Sky, I think. Not too sure, Sky Atlantic, it could be. But check that out as well. There's Underbelly series, which gives a really detailed account on one of the series on John and his family and the cross, but also it covers a whole span of the criminal underworld. If you haven't seen the Underbelly series, I'll try and include some links if I can, but I shall be doing more on the Australian underworld, both present and past, moving forward, as well as all our UK and Irish based underworld crime. Okay, that's me out.